I had an intro and I forgot it.
I really hope we just keep in that
Someone-
bit of you just looking very
Someone's
confused.
fucking calling me now too. Welcome to Overtime on Inferno, your weekly roundup of all the biggest stories in CSGO, quicker than everyone could put an asterisk next to Vitality's win at the Major. Quick reminder to rate and review us before the end of the episode. It really helps us. I'm Logan. This is Aizyesque. Let's get into it. We start off with the big news, with the big thing that happened, and then we've got some ripple effects. We'll start with the fact that the Major happened since we last spoke to you, Major playoffs specifically. I don't think they went as we expected, but also they went exactly as we expected.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if you've watched the Legend stage and you watched the Challenger stage, what actually happened wasn't entirely unpredictable.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, we talked about how good GamerLegion were, or like how good we thought they were. We talked about how good we thought Apeks were. We've said before we're not convinced by Furia.
Yeah,
Faze have, when you watched Faze in qualification, they were not good. You watch them in the Challenger stage, they were pretty good. You watch them in the Legend stage. You can talk all you want about how good all their comebacks were,
but they had to be down.
But they had to come back.
Yeah,
fucking how good were Vitality's comebacks?
Not good at all.
Exactly.
They didn't need to come back.
They were just never behind. That's what an actual great team does. And it's like people were so obsessed with this narrative that FaZe and Na'Vi were great teams and that the playoffs needed them. Na'Vi would have got battered by Heroic.
Oh my god.
They got battered by Heroic in Katowice. Like, they would have been destroyed by them. The only teams that had a chance against Heroic, realistically, were GamerLegion and Vitality. So,
I want to start with the losers in the quarterfinal, then we'll go to the losers of the semi, and then we'll talk about the grand final. Let's start with FaZe, loser of the Heroic FaZe game. You and I both predicted that this was coming. There was like a little bit of like optimism on the hope that, FaZe is playing in front of a crowd. This is it's not their home country, obviously, but it like in front of a crowd is where FaZe kind of feels like they're the best team that they can be.
Yeah.
And we kind of expected something. It was a 2-1. It didn't feel as the series went on.
Smacked him on map 3. They smacked him on map 3.
As it went on, it just felt like a Heroic diff.
Yeah.
It didn't feel particularly good.
No, like that was exactly what it felt inevitable that at some point this magic run FaZe were having was going to run out. Like I don't know how au fait you are with sort of like analytics in sports, but it's like nobody's that lucky consistently. Like nobody overperforms expected goals that consistently. Nobody. Nobody shoots 50% for a full season. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Everyone other than Steph Curry comes down to earth.
Yeah, everyone other than Steph Curry can't shoot 50% from behind the line for an entire season, which is what FaZe are basically trying to do. They were trying to shoot 50% from three. You can't always go down 15-11 and win the game. I don't care how good you are.
Yeah.
And it just felt inevitable that a genuinely good team was going to get to 15 and just blow them away eventually.
Yeah, and Heroic, as we've said on multiple occasions, does not lose to underdogs. Not that FaZe is a huge underdog, but also
but also they lost the GamerLegion.
Well, yeah, Heroic don't lose to underdogs. A and B. Heroic have a tendency to not lose in a clutch. To not lose when it matters. It's not like you get to 15 and you let some team rack up like 7 wins in a row to bring it to overtime generally. Heroic is generally a team that'll lose 1 or 2 or 3 in a row, right? But they'll take a timeout, they'll reset themselves, and they'll push the last round, right? You don't generally see these like 16-14 games where it was 15-7 and the team like huge comeback. That's not generally something you see from Heroic. They're very good mentally in that way. So it doesn't surprise me that they didn't let Faze get into the Faze preferred position of we're going to fucking clutch the shit out of you at every single given opportunity and make you play a 15-15 overtime.
Yeah, what Heroic actually struggle with is being down. Their sort of mental fragility comes when they're losing. It's not that they get into a winning position and lose. It's like they don't know how to adjust once a team stops them. Whereas FaZe have this mental strength, and that's great, and they're winners, but they're not a great team at the moment. It's as simple as that. Like,
let's talk about what we talked about previously could be the most exciting match of the quarterfinals, just because it was between two teams that were so evenly matched. It turned out to be a 2-0. All of these, other than the FaZe Heroic series, turned out to be a 2-0. But Monty GamerLegion was still a banger.
it was pretty dominant. People are going to write, like, people will just write off every game that GamerLegion won as easier than it actually was. And
it wasn't.
Like, they made Monty look bad, but this same Monty team dicked Na'Vi. I mean, dicked them. And it really is as simple as that. Like, it wasn't a case of, like, you know, two underdogs of the quarterfinals, a really low standard of play. GamerLegion made that look like what you would imagine Liquid versus Apeks should look like.
Yeah, no, it should have been a close game, but GamerLegion made it not get anywhere close to it. Right?
I would say actually, GamerLegion's win over Monty was more dominant than Vitality's over Into the Breach.
I would agree with that on 1,000,000%. We'll get to the Into the Breach Vitality series in a bit, but GamerLegion looked like they were 3 classes above Monty at any given point in the series.
They looked like a tier 1 team versus a tier 2 team.
Okay, hold on. I saw this on Twitter, and I'm agreeing with it, and we're going forward with it. Fuck saying tier 1 teams.
Yeah, fine.
Partnered and non-partnered, because we have seen at this major.
No, wow, yeah, it's fine. I've always thought that the concept of tiers was very wishy-washy anyway, because if you really believe in a tier 1, tier 2, like, if you really believe in a tier 1 team, then that should be Heroic and Vitality and nobody else.
That's it, yeah.
Those are the only 2 tier 1 teams. And then you would have to call before this tournament GamerLegion like tier 3 or tier 4. If you're just calling tier 1, if you're including Mouse and OG in tier 1, you also have to include GamerLegion, Bad News Eagles. I actually don't care what anyone thinks about that. You will never convince me that Mouse are a better team than GamerLegion. And you wouldn't have been able to before this event. And you certainly fucking can't now.
After, yeah. Sorry, quick rant aside. GamerLegion looked like a team that was on a mission. They looked like a team that had purpose. Suhi understood the calls and how he wanted to play against Monty. And even when Monty got to play Mirage, which has been the best map for Boros, it has been one of Monty's best maps in the entire series. Boros has looked like an absolute animal on Mirage.
Boros looks world-class on Mirage. I don't know how good he is at other maps. I think he's good at Anubis as well.
Yeah.
But he's world-fucking-class on Mirage. He's so good.
Even though Boros went 27-19, they got Ema and they got Acor into positions to be able to disrupt the entire rest of the team in such a way that it didn't matter that Boros was the star player that was able to do all the things. Is every single time you had Boros and IM take a duel, you had Acor as your next man up. It was a very next man up mentality.
Yeah, I believe, didn't Aizyesque really struggle in that one as well?
He did, yeah.
And it just didn't matter because it was just so good. Like, I don't know, GamerLegion, again, people will just try and write off this win as like, oh, it's against Monty, who cares? And so until they beat Heroic, people were viewing all of their victories through a lens of like, oh, it's just lucky, or oh, it's just bad teams, whatever. Like, until they beat Heroic, people were trying to write that off. And I really think it was a case of them seeing something and just not, like, trying to explain it away rather than accepting what they're seeing. Like, when you watched Imma play during the Legend stage, during the Monty game, How could you not have thought he was a superstar?
He was the best player in the server in both those games.
He was the best player on the server in most of the games until he played Vitality. Every single game he was in, he was the best player on the server.
Yeah.
He was the best player on the server against Heroic, who are invariably the second best team in the world.
Who don't lose to underdogs.
And yeah, and generally don't lose to underdogs. They didn't just lose to fucking GamerLegion either. Like what Heroic did to Faze in map 3, GamerLegion did to Heroic. And I think it's, people are upset or whatever that fucking underdogs are in the playoffs, whatever. If you believe in the long-term health of Counter-Strike, partner teams losing to open circuit teams is a good thing. Because otherwise we end up with like American sports. We end up with League of Legends. We end up with...
We're going to need to have a larger conversation about franchising at one point. It's not at this episode thing because I could go on it for an entire episode, but
this tournament was a one tournament argument against partner teams, against quote unquote franchising. Like the open circuit works because tier 2 quote unquote teams have to innovate because otherwise they will not play events. Mal Sports and OG could carry on doing the same things that demonstrably do not work. They will play against Monty. They will play against Aurora. They will play against Bad News Eagles. They will play against GamerLegion. And they will lose every single fucking time because these tier 2 teams have to improve. They have to keep getting better because if they don't keep getting better, they will not survive. There is no better motivation than survival. And that is exactly why GamerLegion, why Apeks got so much better so quickly, and why Mouse and OG have been treading water. Mouse have played fucking 35 maps all year or whatever the fuck it is. Like 35 games all year.
Apeks played like 100 or something the last 3 months.
Monty qualified for the fucking champion stage and then played an ESL Challenger game. Like hours later. They have been grinding. And if you think you're a Counter-Strike fan and you don't want to see teams who try to improve, who try to push the boat out further, and who grind over teams you've heard of, I don't think you're a Counter-Strike fan. I think it's a simple... I think if you don't want teams like Monty to do well over lazy teams like Mouse, OG, EG, fucking whoever... Like, I'm picking on Mouse and OG because they went out like...
3.
Really badly. Like, but you can easily talk about NIP. Like, what have NIP done in the last few years that's improved? Like, they lost to Apeks with their old AWPer winning a 1v2 to knock them out. Like, the guy they kicked. And, I just think it's a case of, like, this is what happens when you allow teams to rest on their laurels. Like, it's the whole, like how artists need restrictions. Like, if you give an artist unlimited money, his art won't be as good. Like, he needs to be at a point where he needs to make good art to live. Otherwise, he won't make good art. That's just the way it is. Like, this tournament was such a good example of why franchising doesn't work.
Yeah, we will have a much larger conversation. That's going to be one of our off-season shows, because it will not be completely Counter-Strike related, but it will be very related to Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I mean, this will always be a good example of that. And you can talk about the Rio Major as well as an example of that.
All right, let's talk about the next game here. Liquid Apeks. I went in with a lot of NA Hopium, perhaps Copium at that point. I was proved wrong. Apeks is very good. Jacob. So okay, there's a couple bits here, right? Kixan absolutely shit on Liquid.
Yeah, that was strange.
Nock has looked like one of the best oppers the entire major.
He was very good. He won a lot of clutches, which can point to it being a little bit unsustainable. But he was really good.
But if you're putting him in the position to win clutches, it's not going to be your... If you were winning a lot of clutches, it's not like you're suddenly going to one day lose every single clutch for the next 30 clutches. It'll even out, but
yeah,
the big thing about Apeks though was their success was not completely off the back of Nock's clutches. Stiko had the best deagle in the major.
Stiko's deagle is crazy, man.
Stiko's deagle
It's
is
like
insane.
He's like a good version of, like, he's like a pro version of me. Like, the way I play, I am basically Stiko. Like, I'll go 14 and 16, but I'll hit 8-1 deags in a game.
JL has looked like a very solid player until the Liquid series.
JL's interesting in that sometimes he looks like a superstar, and then he just has these like inexplicably bad maps.
Kixan proved that he can IGL against very good IGLs and also Nitro.
Yakinda was in game leader for that game. I spoke to the Apeks coach and to Kixan after that game, and
Cuban,
basically,
man.
oh no, sorry, it wasn't Cuban. I think it was like the analyst. And he was saying,
oh, yeah,
it was somebody at Apeks, and he was basically saying like, Liquid are so predictable. They knew exactly what they were going to do at every stage. Like, Yakinda's calling is like, we just, like, he calls around himself. It's so predictable. And it's all I could think was, Liquid made a big noise about how they changed their entire system 2 weeks ago, and Apeks had already figured them out and
twice
proven that they know how to counter it for a clean 2-0. And it's like, this is what happens when a team when a team is forged in the fires of CCT and whatever. You quickly
Philadelphia semi-finalists, Apeks.
Yeah. You don't need more than 3 days to break a team down, because that's all you get. And I don't think Liquid were prepared for teams to have figured them out already.
We don't need to talk about what the Apeks lineup when they came to Philadelphia was.
Yeah, it was the Apeks Rebels team, right?
No, it was Apeks. It just had shocks on it, which was weird.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that's cursed.
Yeah, no, that was...
Apeks, I'm less high on Apeks than on GamerLegion, obviously. I mean, GamerLegion beat all right, but largely because I think North playing like this isn't entirely repeatable, but he has always been pretty underrated. He was good on NIP, no matter what people say.
I think what GamerLegion showed was sustainable. I think what Apeks and Monty both showed is a solid foundational level, and then they went above and beyond during the major. That doesn't mean that they're not good. Their floor is higher than a lot of people thought, and they have this insane ceiling, right? No one predicted ahead of the major that Monty or Apeks was going to make quarters and semis, right?
Yeah.
Like, their ceilings obviously are incredible.
When you watch Monty play, it's so obvious that they've played like 300 games this year, because the way Boros clears angles, especially on Mirage, like, he's flawless. Like, he takes, like, he doesn't think about his pathing. He's just taking fights perfectly, almost instinctively. Like, he doesn't actually need to do... He doesn't need to do anything special, because what he naturally does is near flawless, because he's put in so many reps that he can just fight you on these angles. And if he does that to tier 2 teams, he can do that to Mouse. He can do that to fucking Faze. He can do it to Na'Vi, because they haven't got the reps. They don't play against people like Boros often that will just straight up disrespect you and will be fighting you in connector at 1 minute 35.
Yeah, I do want to say something. We said a lot about teams not playing a lot of maps. For what it's worth, I'm sure that all of these teams play a lot of practice maps to some degree.
Of course they do, but it's not the same, is it?
But an official is an official, right? And these are magnitudes higher of official maps that they've played in tournaments where it actually matters, where there's prize money on the line, or a spot in a higher tournament, or a reason to continue, rather than you scrim and you're down 12-3 and you go, fuck it, we're just FFing and let's move on with our lives.
Yeah,
right?
like, if you lose a scrim, it doesn't matter. If something doesn't work in a scrim, there's no... I read a book recently about... it was about a guy who was a hostage negotiator talking about negotiation tactics. And he basically said, like, if our tactics didn't work, people died. So ours work because they had to work. When you read about it and you learn about it from, like, a university, it's it's researched and it's great and it's all that, but there's no, it's not tested in an environment, like it's not stress tested, which is exactly what, like, you can prac as much as you want, you can dry run as much as you want, but Monty have stress tested everything they want to do. They know exactly what they want to do on every single map every time they play it because they've put in the reps. And people will write that off, but when Gambit rose from nowhere to be the best team in the world, they played a fuck ton of maps. Fours a few years ago played an absolute shit ton of maps and like found themselves in big events because like Counter-Strike became so natural for them because every day they were playing fucking 9 maps. They were playing like 6 maps a day on average. It was mental.
I mean, Heroic to a degree was the same thing. I mean, Heroic, like 3 years ago, was this fucking no-name, but not no-name team, but like was where Esatag came from and where Blame F came. It was a good like Danish team to come from, but they never did anything internationally. And now Heroic's one of the best teams, and they have been for 3 years now.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Like it's obvious, but people still disregard it. It's like, oh no, they haven't played against top tier competitions. For the most part, neither of Mouse. For the most part, neither of NIP. For the most part, Faze probably play like 3 or 4 games against top tier competition. Like Heroic probably don't play that many great teams because they're always high seed and they play against fucking OG to qualify all the time. They don't have the same amount of games. Teams like Heroic get enough games because they keep going deep in events. I know a friend of mine did an interview with Mezzy where like he asked him about the like the stresses of like the schedule, and he basically said we don't go deep enough in events for it to matter. So I'm sure it would be bad if we kept going to finals, but we don't ever make playoffs, so it doesn't fucking matter. It's like, and he said it in a joking manner, but like they don't play enough games to actually ever get good. How are they ever going to get good?
Absolute base take. All right, let's talk about speaking of Mezzy. Let's talk about the last quarterfinal, which I agree with you was a banger. Which was Vitality and Into the Breach.
Yeah.
I thought that Into the Breach was going to get... So the first map, Vitality led Into the Breach at Vertigo.
Always dangerous, but also Vitality love Vertigo.
Yeah, but you watch this map and you have a little UK pride at the beginning because they looked good.
I had some UK pride the whole way through. Like
Into the Breach's T side looked good.
Nobody came close to beating Vitality at this event. Into the Breach got about as close as fucking anyone else did.
Yeah, it was a 16-11, but that first half, holy man!
Oh, like,
if you wanna watch a Vertigo masterclass, you just go pull the demo and watch Cypher the entire time.
Yeah. I think Harry Nero said in like Discord at one point, like the TLDR Discord at one point, with his tongue firmly in his cheek, Cypher is the best A-ramp player in the world. And the more I watched him, the more I think he's up there. Like, and this is going to sound ridiculous because it's coming from me. People are going to think this is silly, but it's like watching AZ. There was a point where AZ was the highest rated Vertigo player in the world. No, seriously. There was a point where AZ was the highest rated Vertigo player in the world while he was on North. He would have like 1.06 on every other map. He had like a 1.35 on Vertigo. He was ridiculous at the map. When it was, and you know, it wasn't new, but it was still like being figured out.
It had to have like the mid window and shit still.
I think it was the same version of Vertigo as it is now, or a very similar one. Okay. But like the meta was different. Like people hadn't figured out so much. But he would just walk up A ramp and he would just headshot everyone. And Cypher now is playing in a more settled meta, and he's just sneaking through all these smokes. The amount of times he killed ZywOo in that first half was uncanny. My God, man. Like, he just kept killing ZywOo. ZywOo doesn't die on ramp very often. Like, most teams, if you're going to beat Vitality at this map, it's not by going through ZywOo. And that was how they got a lead. And okay, they didn't finish it off, but they came about as close to beating Vitality as anyone else.
Yeah, Cypher got 10 kills against ZywOo. ZywOo happened to get 15 against him, but like still. Oh,
Yeah.
wait.
That would have been on both maps,
right? Yeah, it was 6-6
Yeah.
in duels against each other.
And on the T side, Cypher was winning like all of them. It felt like, anyway.
There's no player like that actually does the same thing, right? Like that's just not a thing.
We had an interview with him on Blast TV where there's a round where he had 10 HP and he kills 2 players, including just like peeking into ZywOo and 1D again. And he just was like, he actually physically couldn't believe it. He was like, "Oh mate, the round I 1D ZywOo, I was giddy. Like you could see he was excited. He was just like, it was crazy."
Absolutely, that was and I mean this with total sincerity. That map, that Vertigo map, was my favorite map to watch this major.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. All right, we talked.
Actually, I would say the map BNE beat Faze 16-3 really did make me chuckle. I'll be honest.
We can talk about the Heroic GamerLegion semi. I think we talked about the shit ton already, though.
I mean, yeah, like I think we should talk about the fact that Heroic are just bottle jobs. They are bottle jobs. It's becoming a pattern that you can't like. You lose once on stage in a game you should win. It happens.
Onliners. That's all.
You
lose
lose twice. They're not onliners because they're really good on LAN in a studio. But the problem is,
have they won online in the studio? I think not.
The problem is that Stown just isn't as good on stage as he is in a studio. He just isn't. Stown is one of the best players in the world in a studio. In front of a crowd, it's a bit of a bottle job, and it like big games. Heroic, they collapsed against GamerLegion. And as good as we think GamerLegion were and are, that Heroic don't collapse like that if it's not a semi-final. They just don't. I've never seen them get outclassed that hard, and I certainly have never seen them get outclassed that hard by a team that has like. By a team that wasn't one of the favorites for the event.
Yeah, we're gonna keep bringing him up. Emo looked incredible.
Oh, he's ridiculous.
Like Emo looked so fucking good this playoffs, up until the finals, and
even then he had one half. Yeah, he had that one half. It was ridiculous.
And he had to play against ZywOo and Vitality and again the French crowd and all that shit too. But like. Emo looked like a world-class player, and here is where I want to start breaching the inevitable question that occurs, which is we're in the dying days of Counter-Strike Global Offensive. There are 2 more tournaments left. We have IEM Dallas this weekend. Yeah, this weekend into next week.
Yeah,
and then the weekend right after that is Blast Spring Finals
and Challenger Katowice, I believe.
And then we're on break for a month and a half. So the general, I think, community assumption is that's roughly about where Counter-Strike 2 is going to drop, at least to a higher degree, and that we'll start playing events on CS2 post the player break. That seems to be the general thought process.
I heard something very interesting with this. So we asked some of the pros, like, oh, when do you think CS2 should be released? And 99% of them said during the player break would be great. There was one player, I believe it was Acor, just said, I really hope they don't drop it during the player break. And like looked at him and he was like,
no,
and he was like, well, I want to have a break. Yeah. I don't want them to drop it during the play break because then I'll have to get on and I'll have to grind Counter-Strike 2 to figure everything out. And I want to actually have my player break. I don't want to have the break be consumed by Counter-Strike 2. It's supposed to be a break. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, actually, yeah, I don't think it should be dropped in the player break.
I think that is an extremely adult and reasonable answer. Do I think Valve's going to listen to that? No.
Absolutely not. There's no way Valve listens. Valve will drop it whenever the fuck they want.
Yeah,
They'll drop it at midnight on a Sunday for no reason.
I was reading a Twitter thread online that was like, not Twitter, there was a Reddit thread that were like pissed that Valve didn't come out and do anything for the last CS:GO
Yeah,
major
I
and was
saw
like
that.
announcing it. And the like the top comment, and I think I like actually like saved this on my Reddit account because I thought it was so good. And it was basically like Valve's gonna do whatever the fuck Valve's gonna do. And here's the thing, we trust that. Valve is one of like 3 companies
Yeah,
that you'll still buy a game release day without worrying about it.
yeah.
Right? Like
And the others were like
FromSoft.
and
And they
Supergiant, I believe, who made
it was
Hades.
yeah, that's it. Like the
Yeah.
list is so small because every fucking game manufacturer comes out and the game is buggy as shit on day one and isn't good. But Valve has this like proven track record. They're not gonna advertise, they're not gonna go out and make a big deal about it. They're just gonna make games and give it to you.
Yeah.
So they're just gonna give it to us whenever the fuck they want.
I genuinely I love the way Valve do things because it's just so like fuck you.
It's so
like,
contradictory to everyone
yeah,
else.
they're just like, you know, they just do like they don't care. They just do their own thing. That's cool. Like I love that. It's so aloof. Like I just kind of respect it. They're like, we don't give a shit what you think. We've made the greatest game of all time. We're gonna make a sequel to it. It'll drop whenever we're ready. We don't care what you think. Your opinion does not matter to us, and that's why I like it. I like that I'm unimportant.
All right, let's go talk about Apeks Vitality, which is the other side semifinals. This felt like storybook. It felt like Vitality had the script written for them that they were going to win this game. I know that the score lines were close, but neither map felt insanely close to me watching. I know the first map was like a lot closer than the second one. Not a lot, but it was 16-14. But to me, it always felt like it was Vitality in control, pushing the button, pushing the envelope, dictating pace.
Yeah.
Spinks was an absolute fucking god. And it felt like it was kind of written that Vitality had to get to the finals.
Yeah, they were dominant. Like even I like to give a shout out, and he doesn't need my respect, but I'd like to give a shout out to Major because every single time Vitality were on the ropes, Zywoo was struggling a little bit, like in front of the crowd, like he was having a bit of a quiet game. Every single time things got a little bit hairy, Majorsk had a massive round. He did it against Into the Breach, right? When Cypher was on a fucking heater, and Into the Breach were like 11-7 up. Majorsk just fucking killed him 3 times in a row on B. That round when Majorsk boy rails Cypher, runs into the site, headshots Rarlan, runs even further, takes down a third with a third headshot. That was the moment where you're like, oh, Vitality aren't losing this. Majorsk is just going to refuse to lose. Because I think Zywoo would have crumbled again in that map one against Into the Breach. I think he was struggling. But Majorsk has won majors. And he knows... Like, he's like, okay.
4 of them, actually.
Yeah, 4 now. He's like, I'm the fucking man, and I'm going to win. He's like, I'm going to go B, and I'm going to rip 3 heads off, and I'm going to win the round, and I'm going to settle us down. And then he just did it again, like 2 rounds later, and you're like, okay, Majorsk isn't losing this game. And he just did the same thing against Apeks. Like, whenever Zywoo was struggling, Majorsk would just have these multi-kill rounds. And he just, like, you always get the feeling that he holds himself back sometimes to be a good teammate, where he could have just been the best player in the world, because you watch him in these moments, you're like, you are a god.
There was actually an interview. I don't know if it was an interview. I don't know if it was somewhere with Dupree, with Apeks, about Dupree.
Right.
And it was basically Dupree had left to go for the birth of his kid, right?
Yeah.
And was watching the team, and he saw how good Jax was doing in the roles.
Yeah.
And Dupree comes back and goes, oh shit, I've been going at this the wrong way. I've been trying to be a star. I need to be way more supportive, and I can see how well I can do in these roles. And Majorsk already had this down. He's had this down for years, right? He had this down on Astralis. He's got this down now. But Dupree, I like huge amounts of respect to Dupree throughout all the playoffs for basically changing completely who he is as a player and still being just as good as Majorsk has been.
And that is why he's won 5 majors. You can say whatever you want about who you think the best player of all time is. Dupree has won 5 fucking majors. So Device without Dupree has not won a major.
So here's Device with a lot of people has won a major, but
well, quite. But like, people will say, "Oh, if you're gonna go with like who has the most rings, then you could have to give it to Device before." But
no, it's
Device without
well,
Dupree has not won a major. Dupree
Zion,
without Device
but,
has. And like, what makes like it's great being a great player and a star player, but Dupree has been in so many different roles for so long, and he's so good at all of them that he is a serial winner. And I think I tweeted the other day that Dupree is Counter-Strike's Bill Russell, which I think is the most fitting.
He has all of the rings.
Yeah.
And he was so good, but he was never at any given. I don't think at any given point Dupree was the best player in the world.
No, and
I think he was always just very good.
And people will write it off as like, oh, he was a great winner, but was he ever the? And like, if you want to talk about the greatest player of all time, you are there to win, and that is what Dupree has done. He's won 5 fucking majors. Like, do you know how insane that is? He's won 5 of them. There was only 19.
Yeah, he's won
10 years.
He's won more than 25% of all of them.
Yeah.
Which would be not very impressive if there was 4, but there was almost 20 of them, which is insane. All right, we're just gonna start moving into the finals at this point. GamerLegion Vitality. I need to shout out someone. There's 2 people left on Vitality who we have not very much talked about. And the first game we need to talk about is the Overpass game. GamerLegion Vitality finals ends up being a 2-0. With one of the most dominant overpasses I've ever seen. And Spinks...
I have a take on it. Okay, so I'll let you finish.
Give your take. Okay, I'll give my Spinks take. Spinks was a man on a mission here. If you've ever seen Blues Brothers, you know at the beginning of Blues Brothers, well, it's not Dan Aykroyd, it's the other guy. The guy that plays Dan Aykroyd's brother walks up to him and goes, "I've got a mission from God." And he goes through this whole bit of like, it's God's mission that he's giving me now to go on this entire fucking movie, right? After he gets out of jail. It felt like Spinks was in that position that he had just been given some God-given power on Overpass. He played out of his fucking mind.
He was frying. It's kind of unfair that when Vitality play Overpass, because Dupree and Aizyesque are so good on B, they are allowed to just play Spinks and Zywoo together on the same side of the map. You think about how insane that is. My take on Overpass is that, yes, it was dominant, but it wasn't as dominant as the result suggested. GamerLegion didn't have a CT side buy round because they lost a force buy where if the T's get a bomb plant in the pistol, they have a better buy than you second round, no matter what you do, which is just ridiculous. And they lost that. And at that point, it was just, they were never going to get a full gun round. I think if you play all 30 rounds, it looks something more like 2010, which isn't quite as dominant as it looks compared to what it was now. Because we never saw GamerLegion with grenades and rifles.
Yeah.
11-4 on the T side isn't that bad. And it's only an economy thing. They never got a full gun round. And you can say, like, if they had started on the CT side, they would still have lost, obviously, but it would have looked closer.
That's a take you can have.
Yeah. They were the worst team, and they would have lost.
Yeah.
But it would have looked a bit closer had they started on the CT side, been able to get rifles and AWPs and grenades. I mean, they probably would have got 8 or 9 CT rounds, and then...
They chose what side they started on.
Did they?
No, they didn't. I'm sorry. I thought this was Vitality's pick for some reason.
No, it was GamerLegion's pick. And I don't think the side you start on makes any difference other than it makes the final score look closer or less close. But it would have looked closer had they started on the CT side.
You're probably right.
It doesn't matter.
It didn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I just think people are like calling it a complete blowout. We never actually saw GamerLegion on a gun round on the CT side. Like,
Spinks was the entire story of the first map. And
oh yeah, Spinks just fried. The Spinks and Zaiwu just fried him on A. There was nothing they could do.
And the second map, the nuke was the second map, and it was all Zaiwu.
Yeah,
it was.
Well,
was,
for the first half it was all Imma, and then the second half it was all Zaiwu.
Yeah, Imma had a fantastic half, but the second that they got to the CT side, it was. Ooh, Zaiwu started frying, man.
In the arena at half time, they would show you like the scoreboard, like the kills, deaths, and ADR. I think Overpass in the final was the first time I looked up and saw Imma not on 150 ADR at half time.
Yeah, he went 11 and 21 in the first map, came around, second map 25 and 20.
Yeah, and he had like 140 ADR at the half time, but then he only got 2 kills on the second half because he kept trying to walk into Zaiwu and die.
Yeah. The second that they got onto the T side, it just did not feel. It didn't feel the same.
They couldn't kill Spinks on Hut, and they couldn't kill Dupree on top of the A site. Sorry, on top of the A site. Every time they hit A, and that when you can't hit A successfully, it really limits what you can do because they can actually start to move their pieces. They can start to play 2 outside. They can start to play 2 towards ramp and push it. Like. If you don't have that hit, you can't do anything.
There are also a lot of rounds that I felt that there was a gap in just how the team plays. And the reason I say that is because I remember distinctly a round where Zaiwu is able to get down into secret. And the entirety of GamerLegion just say, there's no way this guy is in secret. And then they see him in secret after he gets a kill.
And he got like 3 more, right?
And then he gets like 3 more by just like playing time for like 10 seconds. They're like, oh, he's gone away. No, he's back and he gets like 3 more kills. Like,
Vitality like bought enough time for Zaiwu to warm up into the playoffs. And it sounds crazy because he had like 1.2s all the way through, but he never felt god tier until the final map of the final. And it was just like, oh, Vitality have bought enough time now. And you like. You understand the concept of like control decks in the card games, where it's like you just buy time and then your win con comes in on like turn 10. Zaiwu's like he's the 8 mana fucking monster that's come down, and he's like, all right, he's here to take over the whole game now. Now the win con's online, you can't beat them.
Yeah. So I want to end this section with congratulations to Vitality.
Yeah.
Obligatory fuck the French.
Yeah, I will say. So 2 things on this. Apex's winners interview
was fantastic.
All game. It's just like everyone doubted me, but I just won a fucking major, so fuck you. Brilliant.
Perfect. No notes.
Nothing more needs to be said. Like I doubted him, and I still kind of do doubt him, but I have to respect him telling me to fuck off because he did just.
He won a major. What more am I supposed to do?
He's got 2 majors now. He's got the rings. Like I can't argue with him.
I have no rings. He has rings. What am I supposed to do?
And also, I went to a couple of French bakeries while I was there, and it did genuinely make me dislike the French less. I had a croissant there, and I was like, you know what? I don't like him, but
you know what? That was a benefit of the major. I did get to see a video of Ryan eating snails.
I wasn't brave enough to eat snails.
I wouldn't be either, man.
I've heard mixed things. They're like, oh, it's kind of like a chewy mussel. But yeah, that sounds amazing. Fantastic, yeah.
All right, we got one more thing we got to talk about this tournament, and it has nothing in relation to the tournament. The trophy was so shit.
So I like the trophy. I just wish it was bigger.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like the idea of the trophy. I have 2 problems with it, okay? Which makes it look shit to me. One, it was smaller. Like, okay, here's an Xbox controller. It was smaller than this. That's not actually true.
It's not smaller than that. No, it's about the size. It's about the size of a human head.
That's not big enough. This is the last CS:GO major.
It should have been massive.
The Cologne trophy, the Cato trophy, all these trophies, like 2.5 feet tall. Think of the picture of Device like breaking the trophy at Star Ladder. Like, how big is that trophy? That's huge, right? And you look, and there's a picture of Zaiwu putting the trophy next to another trophy in the cabinet at the Vitality headquarters, and it's just smaller than a regular Blast trophy. That's dumb. Give me big trophies.
It should have been bigger.
Number 2, this looks like something that I went to my 3D printer and went, make me, and it made it, and they painted it, and that was it. And here's the thing. That's cool, but like the Blast logo should have been metal.
Yeah.
It should have, this shouldn't have felt like, someone said this and I agree with it, it shouldn't have felt like an off-color Nickelodeon award.
Yeah. It should have been solid gold. They should have made the yellow Blast logo solid gold.
So, maybe not solid gold, but like it should
solid
have been
gold and nothing less.
Like this thing, you could see it had zero weight to it.
Yeah.
Like, and then the MVP trophy was just like they chopped off like 20% of the bottom.
Smaller for some reason.
Yeah. It's just
yeah, no, I agree with
the trophy rubbed me the wrong way, but it wasn't like I hated the idea of the trophy. I actually think the idea was kind of weird and out there, and I like weird and out there. I just think it didn't live up to what it needed to be.
Yeah, that's fair. It definitely should have been. It could and should have been twice as big as it was, and that wouldn't have been oversized.
I would have been a lot happier if it was just twice this big.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Every other trophy, you can get all the players' hands on it to lift it.
Yeah.
This one, you can get like one Zaiwu-sized hand and one Magist-sized hand, and that's it. No one else is touching that shit. Like,
yeah,
you just can't get more people's hands on it.
But I also think people care far too much about what the trophy looks like. Who fucking cares?
I don't know, man. All the pictures I gotta see of this major of them having the trophy, have this fucking stupid looking trophy in it now, which is just like so small and stuff. And it's like, wow, was this the second Counter-Strike major? No, this was the 19th one.
Yeah.
Like we figured out how to make trophies and then said, you know what we're gonna do? Make it smaller.
Yeah, it is a size. Like size does matter, unfortunately. I will say to defend Blast on something else though, like there were basically no tech issues the entire event.
Oh yeah, no, it was
like the production level was phenomenal, and that is something that goes under the radar because you don't really think about it when it's good. You only think about it when it's bad. And
well, okay, I think about it when it's good, but that's
you do because you're you're in the industry.
Nerd. Yeah. The other thing I want to call out is I like show matches. Give us more show matches.
Less smoothie in them, but yes.
Less smoothie in them. I could agree with that. But yeah, give us more show matches. Thanks. It was enjoyable to watch. I
don't care for them, but that one was fun.
Like there's a photo of Simple just being completely clouded in smoke, and he looks like he's having an absolute great time. And give me more of that. Okay, we got the 2 more tournaments, as we said before, left in Counter-Strike. We've got some quick news to go over involving them. The next tournament is going to be IEM Dallas. It will be in Dallas, in Texas, in the United States of America.
Have you seen the roster news for this event? There's some strange ones.
Yes, let's get into it. Let it be clear that there's about 1 million teams going to this event. We'll start it off. Heroic.
There's 16, but yes.
Okay, that's like 1 million. Heroic, Faze, Cloud9, G2, Liquid, Ents, Furia, Fnatic, OG, Mouse, Complexity, Astralis, Greyhound, Nouns, 9Z, and Evil Geniuses. Yes.
Without thinking about it, how many of these teams do you reckon will be completely different in 3 weeks' time? Without thinking about any of the teams, just give me a number between 1 and 16.
9.
Exactly. Stop putting events on straight after the major.
It's a bad, like literally the major should be the end. I don't want to podcast after the major. This should be our last episode. And we go out on a high note that goes, congratulations, Vitality. We're super excited for the next season to start.
And we come back with Rostermania instead of having these half-ass moves for like just before events that you're not sure if they're permanent or not.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously VP isn't at this event. They were supposed to be. Fnatic instead is attending. But if you thought that Fnatic was attending with their roster, you would be wrong. Because Crims can't attend. So they said, who looks the most like Crims? Let's get him. And Forest is on Fnatic again. I think
Crims leaving might be a more permanent thing than just him. That's based on very little.
Yeah.
It's just Fnatic have to make changes. To me, he seems like a reasonable one. Wouldn't be surprised if they pick up some of the OG players. We'll get to in a second.
Not going to be Forest.
No, I think it.
I think it could be like.
It could be like either one of like the GamerLegion guys or like Flames or something.
This game. So okay, before we get into these, I want to talk about the GamerLegion roster and the Apeks roster to a degree. and Monty to a degree. I don't expect the
And into
GamerLegion.
Reach.
Yeah. Well,
I've heard some stories.
I don't expect any of those 4 teams to look the same come 3 weeks from now. Now there is one exception to that, which is GamerLegion. I can see them saying they want to stay as a group and getting picked up by a bigger org that is looking to completely switch their team.
Maybe.
That I could see. The other 3 teams, I could absolutely see Knock, Boros, Kickcenter, JL, Cypher, just getting plucked right out of those teams and put into more international teams. Suhi will go somewhere. Suhi will not be on GamerLegion come 5 weeks from now, unless they keep their entire team as GamerLegion.
So apparently he's got a really big buyout, because when GamerLegion got Suhi, they quickly realized he was really good, gave him a big buyout. So if you want to buy him, apparently his buyout's pretty big. I've heard Cypher has had offers. He's trialed with some teams already. I am Imma almost certainly will his phone will be buzzing from now until July. There's these players are available. There's no way Fnatic stay the same. And if Crims is dropping out for this event, I just think he'll go.
Okay, so let's talk about the rest of the teams that are here for a second. Obviously, normal teams are here. Fnatic is here with Forest instead. Is that the only team that's making a roster change?
OG have got Regalian for Dexter.
Yeah, OG's got Regalian for Dexter.
Which I believe is more permanent than they're letting on.
Okay.
I believe this is a trial period, and he'll almost certainly stay if it goes to plan.
Yeah. EG will be here, and themselves are an entire roster of replacements.
So OG also, there's a report today that Flames and Nico will be let go. Flames is a good player and will almost certainly land on his feet.
Oh, okay. We have some more EG news we need to talk about in a minute here that just got hit.
There's also one other team who don't have their full roster. Dallas,
I'm trying to see if I'm
not sure it's been announced yet.
It hasn't been, so we're gonna not talk about that.
Okay.
I just went to go look for it. That's what I was doing. Okay. I don't expect this event to mean much. I don't expect anyone really trying other than Cloud9. And Greyhound, Nouns, 9Z, EG, maybe Complexity in there. I literally, this event is fucking dumb. I'd say that
it's kind of sad that this event doesn't really mean much, because it is cool to have an event in the US, and
there's two weeks in a row, and neither of them mean fucking anything.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying.
I guess the Blast one means a little bit more, but
it might mean something Heroic will want to win an event.
Well, I mean, after today, it doesn't fucking matter. So okay, so that's Blast Dallas, and by Blast Dallas I mean IEM Dallas. Your other news of the day is that Complexity is replacing Na'Vi in the Blast Spring Groups, which is Blast DC, which makes that mean just a lot less.
Yeah.
It's
kind of cool. There's a US team there, I guess.
There should have been one from the beginning, but whatever. Complexity would not have been the team that would have been chosen, but apparently there's some points in their rulebooks that say that Complexity is the next man up, and great, but it just made Complexity is not fantastic right now. They're actually pretty not great right now. They just fired their analyst. It just feels like we're taking a team that may have been able to do something and not having them do anymore.
Wow, I'm not convinced Na'Vi. There's some roster news about Na'Vi as well, right?
I was going to say, I want to wait for that for next week, because this is going to be a very long podcast if we continue on with roster information. Because there have been a lot of rumors. The last thing I want to talk about is just breaking from Dust 2 2 seconds ago. Valens did an AMA. So Valens being the head of Counter-Strike for EG. They were apparently had talked about promoting the entire EG Black Squad instead of their current roster, and chose not to.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They can't do any worse, can they?
Mm. That's all I needed to state on the EG matter. Insane. That's all. I think that's all we've got for this episode. Congratulations to Vitality.
The final CS:GO major on
Yeah, I mean, it was a storybook ending.
Yeah.
Not only did Zywoo win his major in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, not only did that, like you watch at the end, like I don't know if you watch the entire, if you like just left the arena or if you like stayed.
I had to go do some work after the trophy left.
So I watched the entire end bit, right? I watched up until credits. And watching Dupree and Aizyesque and Zonic and all of their families look like this was a normal occurrence and like a day-to-day thing was awesome. And like Dupree's there with his kid and all the players are coming over, and it looked like it was a family event. And it
kind of is for him, isn't it? He's won 5 of them. 5! Mad.
We're gonna get going. Hopefully, when we come back next week, we won't have a Dallas winner, but we'll talk about roster moves next week because there will almost certainly be a bunch.
Yeah.
And we'll have some Dallas stuff there. So we'll be back next week. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at TLDR, at Logan Aizyesque. Goodbye.